Scientists discovered a massive ancient treasure. What they found will shock you. Hello, and welcome to the Ancient History Channel. My friends, have you ever wondered if the history we know today might not be the whole truth? Because deep beneath the ground, countless secrets still lie silent, waiting for the day they are brought to light. And the fascinating thing is, every time a shovel breaks the soil, it could uncover a story powerful enough to shake the entire world. You see, archaeology isn't just about digging up old things, it's like a journey back through time. Some discoveries leave scientists astonished because they don't match anything ever recorded in books. There are tombs where the bodies inside remain perfectly preserved after thousands of years. There are treasures once thought to be lost forever that suddenly reappear in ways no one could have imagined. And there are mysteries that only grow more puzzling the deeper we dig. By now, you're probably feeling curious, right? Curious about how ancient people lived, what they chose to hide, and why some of their secrets seem far beyond what we can even imagine today. Every discovery is not just an artifact, it's a piece of a puzzle that helps paint a clearer picture of the past, or sometimes makes that picture even more complicated. What truly draws people in is the uncertainty of what comes next. A coffin, a skeleton, or a massive hidden treasure? No one can say for sure, but one thing is clear. Every time history is unearthed, the world is forced to rethink what it once believed to be true. So, if right now, in front of you, there was a piece of land that had never been explored, would you dare to dig and find out what lies beneath? If your answer is yes, then this video is definitely for you. Now, let's dive in and discover what incredible findings archaeologists have uncovered for us in recent years. A non-human skeleton, found among an 8,400-year-old burial site. Just imagine this. One day, people excavate an ancient grave thousands of years old, and inside they discover not only human remains, but also a mysterious creature lying beside them. How would that feel? Chilling, right? But this isn't fiction, it's a real discovery that took place in Sweden, where history still seems to lie asleep beneath layers of cold earth. The story begins at an archaeological site in Ljungaviken, located in Sölvesborg. The area first drew attention in 2015, when early traces of an ancient settlement began to emerge. It took several years before archaeologists were able to excavate most of the site. As layer after layer of soil was carefully removed, a picture of the past slowly came into view, revealing a total of 56 different structures, from burial pits and hearths to perforated stones that were once used as oil lamps. Even from that alone, it's clear this was once a thriving community, not just a simple cemetery. But what truly left scientists stunned was something else entirely, a particular grave dating back as far as 8,400 years. Inside this grave, the primary remains belonged to a man from the Stone Age. At first, everything seemed fairly typical until they discovered another skeleton lying right beside him. And that's when the story took a truly strange turn. This creature was not human. Its skeleton was remarkably well preserved, suggesting that before it died, it had been strong and robust. So what was it? A wild animal? An unknown species? The answer shocked everyone. It was a dog. But don't picture an ordinary dog like the ones we see today. According to researchers, this was an ancient breed that has long since gone extinct, with a large, imposing build unlike any modern dog. It wasn't just a pet. It appeared to have held a special place in the life of the person it was buried with. Archaeologist Ola Magnell from the Blekinge Museum, who directly participated in the excavation, even stated that this discovery is unique in Sweden. Burying a dog alongside a human during the Stone Age was not common practice, suggesting that the relationship between the two may have been far deeper than we once believed. In addition, experts suggest that the dog may have been buried as a form of grave offering, similar to how ancient people placed valuable items in graves for the deceased to take into the afterlife. But in this case, instead of gold or tools, what was buried was a living companion, one that had likely shared a deep bond with its owner. Hearing this, you might start to wonder, was this more than just a ritual? Could it also be a story of emotion and connection? Of course, this wasn't the only remarkable grave. In other burials from the same period in the area, archaeologists also found many valuable items placed alongside the dead. All of these discoveries have turned Ljungaviken into a true archaeological treasure trove, thanks to the astonishing level of preservation of both skeletons and artifacts. Part of the reason everything remained so well preserved is because this ancient settlement lies near the coast. Over thousands of years, rising sea levels, combined with layers of sand and mud, gradually covered the entire site, unintentionally creating an almost perfect environment for preserving the past. It may sound mysterious, but it's also incredibly fascinating, isn't it? Human shadows, imprinted in the soil of a 1,400-year-old burial site, leave archaeologists chilled. Have you ever imagined that when an ancient grave is opened after thousands of years, what remains isn't bones, but only a trace shaped exactly like a human figure pressed into the soil? If not, then let's travel to a place called Olton, in Suffolk, southern United Kingdom, where archaeologists have recently uncovered around 200 ancient graves dating back as far as 1,400 years. These graves belong to the Anglo-Saxon period, a crucial era in the formation of England. What's remarkable is that all of them were found almost completely intact, with no signs of disturbance or damage. At first, it might sound like a routine and uneventful excavation, but what they discovered inside was anything but ordinary. Among these graves, there were two main burial practices. One involved placing the body directly into the ground, and the other involved cremation before burial. However, it was the intact burials that delivered the greatest shock. As archaeologists carefully removed layers of soil, they expected to find skeletal remains, something that should exist in any grave. But instead, they found nothing. No bones, no physical remains of the body at all. All that remained was a hollow impression in the earth, perfectly shaped like a human figure, as if someone had once lain there and then simply vanished. Just imagine standing in front of a patch of ground where the outline of a head, shoulders, and body is clearly visible, as though it had been etched into the soil itself. How would that feel? Not just surprising, but deeply unsettling, right? So what could possibly explain such a phenomenon in ancient graves? According to Dr. Andrew Peachy, a representative of Archaeological Solutions Limited, the team responsible for the excavation, this phenomenon is known as a ghost grave. The name alone sounds eerie, but the science behind it is actually quite logical. Researchers explain that the soil in this area contains high levels of acidity. Over hundreds or even thousands of years, the acid gradually dissolved the bones of the deceased completely. However, during that process, the shape of the body was preserved as an imprint in the soil. In other words, the bones disappeared, but the shadow of the person remained, like a memory that time could not erase. Archaeologists also note that these graves belong to the Anglo-Saxons, a Germanic people originating from regions that are now Germany and Denmark. They migrated to Britain after the fall of the Western Roman Empire and laid the early foundations of what would become modern English society. Because of this, every site connected to them holds immense historical value. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is that beyond the eerie ghost impressions, many of the graves also contained valuable artifacts such as pottery and jewelry, still relatively well preserved after thousands of years. This reveals that the Anglo-Saxons practiced structured and respectful burial rituals, while also reflecting their material life and spiritual beliefs. For all these reasons, the entire burial site is now considered a true archaeological treasure, not only because of its scale, but also because of the extraordinary insights it offers into the past. 5,000-year-old mummy with intact skin and hair reveals secrets of an ancient civilization. Amid the dry sands along the coast of Peru, where ocean winds have blown relentlessly for thousands of years, archaeologists have unexpectedly uncovered a secret once thought to be lost forever. It wasn't gold or treasure, nor massive stone statues, but a tomb containing the mummified remains of a woman, a real human being, whose skin, hair, and even fingernails remain almost completely intact, despite having rested beneath the earth for nearly 5 millennia. This astonishing discovery comes from the site of Aspero, an archaeological complex covering about 35 acres in western Peru. It was once an important coastal town of the Caral Soup civilization, one of the oldest civilizations in the Americas, which flourished from around 3,500 to 1800 BCE. This was not merely barren land, but once a center of culture, ritual, and power. The remarkable tomb was discovered within a large ceremonial structure known as Huaca de los Ídolos. According to experts, the tomb may have been constructed around 3000 BCE, meaning the woman inside had been laid to rest somewhere between 3,800 and 5,000 years ago. But what truly stunned researchers was not just its age, it was the extraordinary state of preservation. Archaeologists report that the woman had been carefully wrapped in multiple layers of cotton textiles, interwoven with reed mats, and most notably, a feathered textile made from macaw feathers. This feathered cloth is considered one of the earliest known examples of featherwork in the Andean region. But the story doesn't end there. Inside the tomb, researchers uncovered a collection of grave goods that sparked both curiosity and amazement: a finely woven headdress, baskets made from reeds, a decorated bone needle, a seashell originating from the distant Amazon region, and even a toucan beak inlaid with intricate beads. In addition, archaeologists found weaving tools, fishing nets, and more than 30 sweet potatoes placed within the burial. At this point, you might be wondering, who was this woman to be buried with such elaborate care? The answer seems to lie within the offerings themselves. All evidence suggests that she was not an ordinary individual, but most likely someone of high status in her society. Exactly how high remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. This discovery strengthens a fascinating theory. Women in the Caral Soup civilization may have held highly important roles, possibly even significant power. Notably, above the body, archaeologists also discovered a collection of funerary offerings, including bird-shaped vessels and woven baskets placed on totora reed mats. Everything was carefully arranged, as if the ancient people had thoughtfully prepared her journey into the afterlife. Currently, a multidisciplinary team of researchers continues to analyze the remains and artifacts. They aim to learn more about her health, diet, cause of death, and the origins of the items buried with her. Because who knows, perhaps from this 5,000 years sleep, they will gradually uncover even greater secrets about a civilization that once thrived brilliantly, only to disappear in silence. Until those answers are found, we can only wait patiently. Human skeleton with 13 stab wounds in a 1,300-year-old tomb, a mystery still unsolved. Have you ever thought that within ancient tombs, places we assume hold only the dead, there could be a hidden murder that was never recorded? If not, let's travel to the Xianzi Cemetery in Ningxia, a region that dates back to the era of the Eastern Han Dynasty. It was here, during an excavation, that archaeologists uncovered a highly unusual tomb. Inside, they found a skeleton in a strange position, not placed in a coffin, not laid out properly, but thrown into the entrance tunnel of the tomb, as if it were something meant to be hidden in haste. This tomb originally belonged to a wealthy family from the Eastern Han period, 25 to 220 AD. But what puzzled researchers was that the skeleton did not belong to that time. After careful analysis, they determined that the man had died between 640 and 680 AD during the Tang Dynasty, roughly 700 years after the tomb's original occupants. Right away, something didn't add up. At first, a seemingly logical explanation was proposed. Perhaps this was an unfortunate grave robber. In ancient China, especially after the Eastern Han period, tomb raiding for treasures was widespread. Even famous historical figures like Cao Cao were known to have used such methods to gather resources for war. So the idea that a robber might have been killed by accomplices and discarded in the tomb didn't seem far-fetched. But as experts examined the evidence more closely, that theory began to fall apart. Among them was Professor Qin Wang, who analyzed every detail of the skeleton and reached a chilling conclusion. The man was about 25 years old, physically strong, and showed no signs of living a hidden or criminal life. More importantly, his body bore a total of 13 stab wounds, scattered across the skull, ribs, and arms. Yes, 13 stab wounds. This was not a moment of rage, it was a deliberate act meant to kill. And it didn't end there. The position of the skeleton made the story even clearer. The man was lying on his back, his right arm raised as if trying to shield his face, a deeply human reflex when facing imminent death. This suggests that he did not die instantly. He resisted, he tried to defend himself, but ultimately could not withstand the fatal blows. And after it was all over, his body was thrown into the tunnel of an ancient tomb, a place no one would think to look and no one would notice. Researchers describe this act as hiding a leaf in the forest, a nearly perfect way to conceal a crime. No evidence, no witnesses, no historical records. Only a skeleton lying in silence for more than 1,300 years, carrying a story that was never told. From this, scientists reached a firm conclusion: the victim was not a grave robber, which means this was most likely a real case of murder, a crime completely buried from the flow of history. In the past, archaeologists have discovered many out-of-time skeletons in ancient tombs, but most were linked to grave robbing or accidental collapses. This case, however, feels different, like a secret deliberately hidden, a life erased without a trace. Even today, researchers cannot identify the killer or the true motive behind the crime, but at the very least, they have achieved one thing: they have given a voice back to the dead. After more than a millennium of silence, the story of this man has finally begun to emerge. So if it were you, standing before a skeleton marked by such a painful death, what would you think? A historical mystery waiting to be uncovered, or a reminder that no matter how deeply a story is buried, one day it will be told? Treasure hidden beneath a 3-ton coffin. Grave robbers dug 9 times but never reached the truth. Have you ever thought that the most valuable thing might be right in front of you, but because it seems so obvious, no one bothers to notice? It sounds unlikely, right? But this actually happened in real life, at an ancient tomb in Shanxi, China, a region famous for some of the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries. Back in the 1960s in Xi'an, a group of workers accidentally uncovered an ancient tomb while on the job. In a place like Shanxi, this wasn't entirely unusual, so they didn't panic. Instead, they quickly reported it to the cultural authorities. Soon after, an archaeological team was sent in, beginning the journey to uncover a secret that had lain undisturbed for over 1,000 years. After initial surveys, experts identified the tomb as dating back to the Tang dynasty, a time when people of status were often buried with numerous valuable grave goods. And as you know, items that might have seemed ordinary in ancient times can become priceless treasures after thousands of years. Naturally, many assumed this tomb would contain significant riches, but reality turned out to be very different. As they dug deeper, the archaeologists discovered 9 holes of various sizes, clear evidence that the tomb had already been looted multiple times. In other words, it had been visited by grave robbers again and again. With that many intrusions, it seemed likely that anything of value had long since been taken, leaving behind nothing but an empty shell. And yet, when they carefully examined the interior, something felt off. There were no signs of chaotic digging, no broken fragments, no traces of artifacts being removed. In the nearly empty space, only one object remained: a massive stone coffin weighing about 3 tons, approximately 6,600 pounds, standing silent and unmoved. If you were there, you might have felt discouraged, thinking, "That's it, everything's gone." But the archaeologists didn't give up so easily. They sensed something wasn't quite right and decided to investigate further. Then they made a decision that, in hindsight, proved incredibly fortunate: to move the stone coffin from its original position. Of course, this was no simple task. A 3-ton stone block isn't something you can just lift on a whim. But as soon as the coffin was finally raised, a hidden space beneath it slowly came into view. And in that moment, everything changed. The real treasure had been there all along, hidden directly underneath. Not just a few scattered items, but an entire cache of ancient artifacts carefully concealed. In total, 870 objects were discovered. Among the most remarkable were pieces of Tang Sankai, a distinctive tricolored glazed pottery from the Tang dynasty, once considered the pinnacle of ceramic craftsmanship in ancient China. And here's the fascinating part. Generations of grave robbers had dug through the tomb, carving out 9 separate entry points, yet every single one of them left empty-handed. Not because they lacked skill, but because they overlooked the most obvious object in the room, the massive stone coffin they simply didn't have the means to move. The tomb's owner, though unknown, must have been extraordinarily strategic. Instead of hiding the treasure in the deepest or most concealed location, he placed it directly beneath the coffin, a spot that was both simple and, given the technological limitations of the time, nearly impossible to access. Thanks to that clever design, the treasure remained untouched for over 1,000 years. And thanks to the persistence of archaeologists, this story was finally brought to light, helping us better understand the culture, daily life, and craftsmanship of the Tang dynasty. When you think about it, life can be like this too. Sometimes the things we believe are lost are still right there. We just need the awareness to recognize them. So if it were you, standing in a place that had already been thoroughly dug up like this, would you walk away or would you keep searching? Feel free to share your thoughts below. 400-year buried treasure, worth hundreds of millions, suddenly blown out of a destroyed ancient tomb. Have you ever imagined that a high-risk, high-reward decision by a few hundred villagers could suddenly uncover a historical secret buried for centuries? It sounds like something out of a movie, but this story is completely real, and what happened next left everyone who witnessed it stunned. In 1966, in Gaowu Town, Anji County, Zhejiang Province, China, more than 200 villagers gathered to quarry stone from Laohu Mountain to build roads and bridges. At first, everything seemed normal, until they realized the mountain was made entirely of granite, so hard that even picks and shovels were useless. Faced with this challenge, someone proposed a bold idea. Instead of breaking the mountain, why not dismantle an ancient tomb located right there and use its materials? It may sound reckless, but this was no ordinary tomb. It was constructed from massive stone blocks, their surfaces smoothly polished and stacked into a hexagonal structure about the height of an adult. On top were 6 thick stone slabs forming a roof, and in front stood a large stone altar used for rituals. Surrounding it was an area resembling a stone workshop, roughly the size of 3 rooms, with 4 imposing stone lions placed beneath, like silent guardians protecting something incredibly important. Then the drilling began. Explosives were packed into the cracks between the stones. Within moments, a series of blasts echoed across the mountainside. The 6 massive slabs atop the tomb were blown apart, and debris scattered in every direction. But what happened next left everyone frozen in place. As the dust settled, an unbelievable sight appeared before them. Gold, silver, jade, and precious gems scattered across the ground, glittering as if someone had just poured a treasure across the mountainside. These items had been buried underground for hundreds of years, and now they lay right at the villagers' feet. Imagine being in that moment. Could anyone remain calm? Of course not. And just like that, the workers rushed forward, grabbing as many valuable items as they could. But the excitement didn't last long. The incident quickly reached the authorities. A specialized team from the Cultural Heritage Bureau was immediately dispatched to the site, recovering the artifacts and requiring locals to return anything they had taken. After examination, experts identified a total of 47 valuable relics, 5 gold items, 23 silver pieces, 5 jade artifacts, 3 gold folding fans, along with numerous agate and amber objects. All were exquisitely crafted, with some jade pieces classified as national treasures. The total estimated value reached at least 200 million yuan, tens of millions of US dollars. But that wasn't all. Inside the tomb, archaeologists also found 2 black coffins, one containing a male body, the other a female. At first they assumed it was simply a typical noble couple from ancient times. However, after deciphering inscriptions, the truth gradually came to light. The tomb belonged to Wu Lin, a high-ranking official of the Ming dynasty who once served as a provincial inspector in Shandong. Born in 1485 and passing away in 1553, he was known for his integrity, upright character, and scholarly brilliance, counted among the 4 great scholars of his time. Notably, he retired at the age of 63, weary of political struggles, and returned to his hometown to live a simple life until his death. Which raises a puzzling question. How could someone who lived so modestly end up in a tomb filled with such immense wealth? The answer lies with his sons. All 4 of them were accomplished scholars who held high-ranking positions in the imperial court and were favored by the Jiajing emperor. They received generous rewards of gold and silver from the emperor, and it was they who used those riches to rebuild their father's tomb, making it grand and imposing and filling it with precious treasures. To protect it from grave robbers, they carefully sealed the tomb with enormous stone blocks, believing it to be impenetrable. And for over 400 years it was. Until, in a twist of fate, that very protection was shattered in mere minutes by explosives. When you think about it, it's both astonishing and unsettling. A treasure thought to be lost forever was suddenly brought back to light, triggered by nothing more than a very ordinary human decision. An ossuary reveals the life and death of Jesus. The story takes place just before Easter in 2017. At that time, the Israel Antiquities Authority captured widespread media attention when it opened, for the first time, a facility known as the National Treasures Warehouse. This wasn't an ordinary museum. It was a vast underground storage space covering about 53,800 square feet, located in Beit Shemesh, about 19 miles west of Jerusalem. Inside were thousands of artifacts collected from the Holy Land, a region closely tied to the life of Jesus Christ more than 2,000 years ago. And among all those priceless objects, one item immediately drew everyone's attention: an ancient ossuary, a bone box, engraved with the name Yeshua, which is Jesus in ancient Hebrew. Hearing this, many people, including journalists at the time, wondered, could this be a clue to the final resting place of Jesus? But the reality is far more complex. Archaeologists quickly explained that around 2,000 years ago, the name Jesus was actually quite common in the Holy Land. In fact, about 30 other ossuaries bearing the same name have been discovered. In other words, the presence of the name alone does not mean it belonged to the Jesus we know. So the question becomes, if it's not direct evidence, why are these artifacts still considered so important? According to Gideon Avni, head of archaeology at the Israel Antiquities Authority, the answer lies in perspective. He explains that while there may be no definitive physical evidence of Jesus himself, these discoveries help scientists reconstruct a more realistic picture of his life and death. Simply put, they may not have found him, but they are beginning to understand the world he lived in. One of the most striking examples is a replica of the heel bone of a man named Yehohanan, who was executed by crucifixion in the 1st century. The bone still bears the mark of an iron nail driven through it. From this, archaeologists have been able to better understand how victims were executed. The feet were nailed separately, rather than together as often depicted in traditional religious imagery. And according to Avni, it's very possible that Jesus suffered a similar form of execution. Beyond that, the collection also includes a large carved stone depicting the Second Temple, a sacred structure that once stood in Jerusalem. What makes this artifact especially significant is that it was discovered in an ancient synagogue along the Sea of Galilee, a place where archaeologists believe Jesus once preached. Small details like these may seem minor, but together they form a vivid picture of the journey of a man who changed the course of human history. And yet, what makes this story truly fascinating is a paradox. The more we search, the more we realize that history doesn't always leave behind clear traces. According to religious scholar Yiska Harani, the lack of physical evidence for Jesus is not surprising. At the time, he was simply one of millions of people living in the Holy Land, and not everyone was recorded in stone or preserved through artifacts. So perhaps the answer doesn't lie in ossuaries or inscriptions. As many scholars suggest, the clearest evidence of Jesus' existence may actually be found in his teachings and the profound influence he left on humanity. What about you? Do we truly need physical proof to believe in a historical figure? Or is it possible that the most enduring truths are the ones we cannot see? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 500-year-old mummy found wearing an intact official robe in China. A coffin had lain undisturbed for half a millennium, untouched, until one day it was unexpectedly excavated. As people carefully lifted the lid, they expected to find nothing more than decayed bones. But no, the sight inside left everyone stunned. A body, almost perfectly preserved. Even the official robe worn by the deceased still retained its shape, as if it had only just been placed there. Does that sound like real life, or something straight out of a movie? If you think it's fiction, then you'd be mistaken. Because this is exactly what archaeologists recently discovered in Henan, China, during the excavation of a tomb dating back about 500 years. The tomb itself was not grand or elaborate like imperial mausoleums, but it concealed a mystery that captured everyone's attention: the almost unbelievable state of preservation of the body inside. As soon as the discovery was reported, local cultural heritage authorities quickly arrived, sealed off the site, and stationed guards around the clock to prevent any disturbance. When experts began their analysis, they were able to identify the individual based on inscriptions found within the tomb. The man was Gu Pu, who served as a right censor-in-chief under the Jiajing Emperor during the Ming dynasty. While not a widely famous figure in historical records, he represented the class of government officials during a turbulent period in Chinese history. Yet what truly amazed researchers was not just his identity, but the condition of his remains. After 500 years, the body should have decomposed completely, but in this case, it remained almost intact. Most striking of all, the official robe he was buried in had retained its structure, layer upon layer of fabric still visible, giving the impression that he had only recently been laid to rest. At this point, many people began to wonder, how could a body remain so well preserved for centuries? Was there a hidden secret in the burial method, or was it due to unique environmental conditions? The answer likely lies in how people of the past prepared for death. During the Ming dynasty, burial practices, even for upright officials, were not overly extravagant, but they placed great emphasis on preservation. Coffins were often tightly sealed, limiting the entry of air and bacteria. This helped slow the decomposition process significantly. But the story doesn't end there. On Chinese social media, rumors began circulating that the tomb once contained valuable artifacts such as a ceremonial sword, fans, and other treasures, but that they had been taken before authorities arrived. It might sound plausible, since officials in ancient times were often buried with valuable goods. However, representatives from the Cultural Office of Taikang County quickly denied these claims. According to them, the absence of gold or valuable items in the tomb was completely normal. During the Ming dynasty, corrupt officials were severely punished, so most chose to live modestly and were buried in relatively simple ceremonies. This detail, in turn, reflects the character of Gu Pu, a man who did not seek material wealth. And perhaps that's the most meaningful part of this discovery. The greatest value of the tomb does not lie in treasure or artifacts, but in the story of a person. After 500 years, what remains is not wealth, but the image of an official lying there, dressed in formal robes, as if still preserving his dignity and honor. Isn't that fascinating? The Griffin Warrior tomb with over 3,500 treasures, revealing secrets of Bronze Age Greece. There was once an ancient tomb that lay silent for thousands of years, completely unknown, until one day, as layers of earth were carefully removed, an enormous treasure suddenly came to light, leaving the entire archaeological world in shock. Not just a handful of scattered items, but more than 3,500 valuable artifacts, gold, silver, jewelry, weapons, and armor, all contained within a single grave. This is the story of the famous Griffin Warrior tomb. The discovery took place in southwestern Greece, near the ancient city of Pylos, a region closely associated with the legendary Mycenaean civilization. Here, a research team funded by the University of Cincinnati, led by archaeologists Jack Davis and Sharon Stocker, made a discovery they likely never expected. On the very first day of excavation, while working near what is believed to be the Palace of Nestor, part of the ancient city of Pylos, they began to uncover signs of a tomb. At first, it seemed fairly ordinary, but the deeper they dug, the more they realized they were standing before something extraordinary. Within the first 6 months, the team uncovered the nearly intact skeleton of an adult male, estimated to have been between 30 and 35 years old at the time of death. But what made him truly remarkable was not just the skeleton, it was what had been buried with him. Archaeologists later gave him the striking name Griffin Warrior, and that name was no coincidence. Beside the body, they found an ivory plaque engraved with the image of a mythical creature, half lion, half eagle, known as a griffin. This symbol has long been associated with power and authority, suggesting that this man was far from an ordinary warrior. But what truly stunned the excavation team was the sheer number and quality of the artifacts surrounding him. At first, they uncovered around 1,400 items, but that number quickly grew to over 3,500 as the excavation continued. And notably, there was almost no pottery, something typically very common in ancient burials. Instead, nearly all the items were made from precious materials such as bronze, silver, and especially gold. Cups, vessels, and containers gleamed as if they had only just been placed there. According to Dr. Sharon Stocker, this was extremely rare, since most tombs from the same period primarily contained ceramic objects. And the discoveries didn't stop there. Among the treasures were a bronze mirror, 6 finely crafted ivory combs with delicate teeth, and various semi-precious stones such as amethyst, agate, and quartz. These details suggest that the man was not only a warrior, but also someone who cared deeply about his appearance and status. In other words, He was not only powerful in battle, but also lived with a strong sense of style for his time. Even more striking, archaeologists found gold cups carefully placed on the chest and abdomen of the body. Near the neck lay an exquisite necklace with 2 intricately crafted pendants. Everything seemed deliberately arranged to emphasize the status and power of the deceased, even in the afterlife. So who was this man truly, to be buried with such immense wealth? A king? A powerful general? Or a unique figure lost to history? To this day, those questions remain unanswered. But one thing is certain. This discovery has opened an entirely new window into understanding Bronze Age Greece. It reveals the wealth, power, and aesthetic sensibilities of people from that time, things we once could only imagine through books. And now, think about this. If a single tomb can contain such an extraordinary treasure, how many more secrets are still buried beneath the ground, waiting to be discovered? 1,200-year-old tomb, buried with gold in the living, reveals a chilling secret of the Köklä elite. Beneath the deep soil of a quiet archaeological park lies an ancient tomb that has remained there for more than 1,200 years. No one knew what was inside until archaeologists began to excavate it. As layer after layer of earth was removed, not only did gold and treasure emerge, but also a story chilling enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. This is the story of a tomb located in El Caño Archaeological Park in Nata District, Köklä Province, Panama. The tomb has been identified as the final resting place of a young chief who lived between 750 and 800 AD, a time when the Köklä culture was flourishing. But for the ancient Köklä people, death did not mean solitude. On the contrary, individuals of high status were often sent off accompanied by others. And that's where the story takes a darker turn. Archaeological evidence suggests that in Köklä culture, selected individuals, often wives or close servants, may have been sacrificed to be buried alongside their lord. As a result, many tombs from this culture contain not just one body, but an entire group of individuals. And the tomb at El Caño is a striking example, perhaps even more elaborate and mysterious than most. As archaeologists expanded the excavation, they discovered the body of the chief lying face down on top of a woman. According to experts, this may have been a common ritual practice in Köklä culture, carrying a spiritual meaning that we still do not fully understand. But that was only the beginning. Surrounding the central burial, they found the remains of dozens of other individuals, initially estimated at 31. In other words, not just 1 or 2 people, but possibly an entire group had been buried alongside this chief. What does that say about the power and beliefs of that society? And yet, even that wasn't what shocked researchers the most. What truly astonished archaeologists was the sheer quantity and luxury of the artifacts uncovered. Numerous gold objects were found, including belts made of gold beads, bracelets, earrings, and uniquely shaped jewelry depicting crocodiles and human figures. The discoveries didn't stop there. They also found earrings made from sperm whale teeth covered in gold, 2 gold plates, 2 bells, as well as skirts and bracelets made from dog teeth. There was even a set of flutes crafted from bone, a detail both unusual and thought-provoking, raising questions about ritual and music in ancient funerary practices. These objects were not merely signs of wealth. According to experts, they likely held deep spiritual significance, connected to beliefs about the afterlife. For the Köklä people, carrying gold and special items into the grave may have been a way to ensure a smooth journey after death. The head of the excavation project, Julia Mayo, noted that the initial images of the artifacts, from gold sheets and figurines to animal-shaped objects, reveal a culture of remarkable craftsmanship and rich symbolism. Yet the more they uncover, the more they realize they have only scratched the surface of a much larger mystery. Even now, the exact number of individuals buried in the tomb remains uncertain, with estimates ranging from 8 to 32 people. Further genetic analysis will be needed to determine how they were related, which means the story of this tomb is far from over. So let's wait and see what new discoveries experts will bring us next about this fascinating and haunting site. The Dragon Triangle, a terrifying mystery. Beneath Japan's waters, the world's second Bermuda? Lying silently in the depths of the ocean, Not far from the bustling capital of Tokyo, Japan, there is a stretch of sea whispered about by locals through stories with no clear explanation. It is known as the Dragon Triangle, or more ominously, the Devil's Sea. At first glance, the waters appear calm and peaceful, but beneath the surface lies one of the most mysterious and frightening locations on Earth, often referred to as the Second Bermuda Triangle. This is not just a geographic location, but a gateway to phenomena that modern science has yet to fully explain. In just a short span of 2 years, from 1952 to 1954, the world was shocked by the disappearance of 5 military vessels, along with more than 700 sailors while passing through this area. No distress signals, no wreckage. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air. Even more chilling is the fact that such incidents did not occur just once. Between 1963 and 1972, approximately 160 vessels of all sizes reportedly disappeared under mysterious circumstances while crossing the Dragon Triangle. A staggering and haunting number. Compasses malfunction. Communication systems suddenly fail. Clear skies can turn into thick fog within moments. Massive whirlpools form in a matter of minutes. Everything happens too quickly, too abnormally, for anyone to react in time. And if you think this is merely the result of unusual weather, consider this. Some theories go far beyond natural explanations. One hypothesis suggests that beneath the Dragon Triangle lies a secret extraterrestrial base where advanced technologies are hidden, tested, and possibly used to prevent human intrusion. Others believe this region may be an artificial construct, part of a hidden agenda by an unknown force attempting to conceal the truth beneath the ocean itself. Another group of researchers points to intense seismic activity beneath the seabed, where tectonic plates constantly shift and collide, potentially creating extreme phenomena such as massive underwater vortices or powerful electromagnetic waves capable of disabling navigation systems. But one detail continues to puzzle scientists. The Dragon Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle, and even the Egyptian pyramids appear to lie along the same geographical alignment. Is this merely coincidence, or part of an ancient interconnected system we have yet to understand? Could there have once been a highly advanced prehistoric civilization that left its mark through these mysterious locations? Could these sites form part of a global energy network? There are as many questions as there are theories, and each theory seems to open the door to even more unanswered mysteries. Even the most experienced fishermen in Japanese waters are reluctant to venture deep into the Dragon Triangle. To them, it is not just a dangerous place, but a forbidden zone, a realm where gods and demons are believed to clash, where time stands still, and where people can disappear without a trace. For scientists, every expedition into this region is a test of the limits of human knowledge, and an opportunity to uncover fragments of truths hidden for centuries. So what do you think? Is this simply a coincidence of nature? An extreme weather phenomenon yet to be fully understood? Or is there truly something beneath those waters that goes far beyond anything we've ever known? Share your thoughts in the comments, because who knows, you might be the one to help unlock the next piece of this ocean's greatest mystery. You see, every archaeological discovery is more than just an object unearthed from the ground. It's a story being told again after thousands of years of silence. Some secrets leave us in awe, while others force us to rethink everything we thought we knew about history. But the most fascinating part is this: there is still so much left undiscovered. Who knows, right beneath our feet at this very moment, there could be a hidden secret powerful enough to shake the entire world. The only question is, who will be the one to uncover it? So out of all the discoveries we explored today, which one impressed you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to give ancient history a like and subscribe to the channel. For now, goodbye, and see you in the next video.